And a good morning to you. We'll have Tom Luginbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN. He'll join us here in just a minute. He'll join us on the Yuengling Lager guest line. Fantastic beer out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Goes with anything, including Blake's Thin Crust Pizza. That's right. Wood-fired pizza, New York-style pizza, and a Yuengling Lager. Oh, man. And any burger on the Bulldog Burger menu in Lake Harbor and Ridgeland, Starkville, or Tupelo. A Yuengling Lager and a burger from Bulldog Burger. That's a good thing. Y'all call us, invite us. We'll show up. Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're streaming live on thezone1059.com. I want to let you know at 9:30 we'll have the Kessler Prime crew in. Chris, Kevin, and others, and they're going to mix Christmas cocktails for us. We just landed Patron tequila, the number one tequila in the United States and the world, because that's how we do it. And so they'll make a Patron tequila, a Long Branch bourbon cocktail, and a Tito's vodka cocktail. So it's kind of a Christmas party, Christmas cocktail theme with Patron, Long Branch, and Tito's. We're looking forward to that. That'll be at 9:30. You can watch, like you can right now on YouTube, search Out of Bounds Sports. We welcome in our friend Tom Luginbill on the show. Lugs, where are you right now?
I'm actually at home. I'm putting together our Capital One Bowl Mania show that will be airing on ESPN. I've got to go to Bristol this weekend. So what we do, it's pretty cool, and you can actually go on ESPN.com and sign up for it, is we take all 42 bowl games, we pick a winner, and then we rank with a confidence number how confident we are in our pick to win. So 1 would be the least amount of confidence. 42 would be the most amount of confidence. And we got to rank all those games based off of our confidence level of the team that we picked will win the game.
That's kind of cool.
It is, yeah. It's cool. It's going to be on ESPN on a Sunday night. Me and Dan Mullen and Acho and Kevin Connors. And so we'll bet. It's really, to be honest with you, it's a show about ball busting. Excuse me. But it's basically, wait a minute, dude. You just picked San Diego State to win, but your confidence number is only an 8. What are you talking about? They're going to win that, no question. I would have given it a 23. And so it's a little bit of a going back and forth and jabbing each other type of show.
I can't wait to see if Dan Mullen gets back in the game in the next year or so. You know?
I don't think he will. I think that he's to a point now where he enjoys what he's doing. He's got young kids and making good money. He's made tremendous money.
Yeah.
And I think he's just fine.
Wow. That will be interesting if he hangs it up for good and after the stint at Mississippi State and Florida. All right, speaking of, what do you make? Deion Sanders just went through an unbelievable run here at Jackson State. Yeah. And you got to give him credit and the people around him. Now, he's going up to the Power 5 level, to the Pac-12, to Colorado, which really hasn't been committed to football. But they've had their moments a little bit in the last 30 years, especially Eric Bieniemy and Cordell Stewart, a little bit this and that. Now, Southern Cal and UCLA leaving kind of waters down that conference, so that could play in his favor. What would you define as successful? Because he's not going 13-0, I don't think. What would you define as successful at Colorado for Coach Prime?
The only way to accurately answer that question is if the university has decided to change what has been very stringent admission standards for transfers. And if they've done that and he's gotten that in writing, then I think he's got an opportunity to be successful long term. If they haven't done that, and it's been a problem for every coach that's preceded him, then he's going to have some real challenges in front of him, because this is a different game now, right? I mean, you're going to have administrators involved, boosters, power brokers. There's a huge expectation level that's now been set. But the only way to revamp this entire thing is probably, and if you listen to his introductory press conference and if you listen to some of the speech that he had for the team for the first time, he's letting it be known that if you're not willing to compete here, go ahead and just jump in the transfer portal right now.
Right.
Which tells me that maybe he has in writing contractually the knowledge that they are going to be able to compete with their peers as it relates to getting transfers admitted into school. And if that happens, then I think they've got an opportunity to be a very good football program. Now, do I think they're going to be an 11-1, 10-2 program in the next 2 to 3 years? No. Having SC and UCLA lead the Pac-12 doesn't change the fact that SC still and UCLA are still SC and UCLA, and they're going to have a significant influence on the state of California,
right,
where Colorado has to have a significant presence, as well as Texas. So I think it's going to be a fascinating experiment. Obviously, it's a whole different ballgame at the level he's at now, taking this job. And we'll see how successful he is, not just in recruiting, but from a transfer perspective. Because keep in mind here, at the opening press conference, his son's in there and he points at him. He says, "There's your quarterback." Well, if you say that, you're basically telling every other quarterback on the roster that there's not going to be a competition to be the starter here. So what are those kids going to do?
Right. Well, that's a good point. So who do you think is a better recruiter, Deion Sanders or Hugh Freeze? They both use the evangelical piece, but there's other things that they do that are advantageous and work for them. Now, I know Deion is a massive name. He's a bigger name than Freeze because he's arguably the best corner in the history of the game and a first ballot Hall of Famer. But who do you think is a better recruiter, Hugh Freeze or Deion Sanders?
Oh, my goodness. That is not only a great question, but incredibly difficult to answer because it is their approach is so vastly different. I mean, you're talking about somebody in Deion Sanders that literally posts every step he takes of every day in every event he's in, what he's doing on the internet. Like to the point where it's almost overload versus a coach in Hugh Freeze that's been doing it for a long time and is far more experienced at doing it than Deion is. And also is going to be heavily involved in the X's and O's side of it, where I don't know if Deion, aside from coaching the secondary, if he's going to be in charge of one side of the ball or another. But I think I would, to give you a definitive answer on that question, I want to say Hugh Freeze. The traditionalist in me wants to say Hugh Freeze, but in today's climate, how kids respond, how they react, what resonates, you can make a fair argument that it's Deion. He just hasn't done it at this level and shown any type of proof of concept yet. So I would go with Hugh.
All right. 7-5, 8-4. If you look at Colorado the last 30 years, that's a success. Now, that may not be enough for Deion. Would you consider that a success if after about 5 years, his average is 7-5, 8-4 at Colorado, Luke's?
I would say, given the current state of that program, the player pool that they are drawing from, whether that would probably be around what I'd think you could be. But if you hit on the right transfers at the right positions, who knows where it could go, right? If you hit on a big-time quarterback, let's just say you go out and you get a couple of difference makers along the defensive front, a first-round offensive tackle, you know that they're going to get skill there. Deion Sanders is going to get skill.
Sure.
They're going to flock to Boulder. So I think a lot of the answer to that depends on how well they would do in the transfer portal to help elevate the thing faster than you could, say 5 years ago. You used to not be able – you couldn't just wave a magic wand and all of a sudden flip a roster overnight. But we kind of saw Ole Miss do that. We kind of saw USC do that. But because of the transfer portal, it allows you to get better quicker. But I think to get over that 8-win hump, they'd really have to be right on so many of the transfer portal hits.
He is Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN. Lugs joins us on the Yuengling Lager guest line. Okay, what if Shador can't make the jump? Then, to me, it gets ugly for a couple years. Lugs.
Yeah, I think he can make the jump. He's capable of making the jump. We had him graded out as a Power 5 level quarterback coming out of high school, but you are 100% right. So much of this is going to be determined on the quarterback position, at least early on. And, let's just say that there's a struggle, or maybe it's a bit of a steeper learning curve based off of his comments at his press conference. Who else are you going to have in terms of depth, and what's their talent level going to be if you had to turn to somebody else?
Right.
And that's a question I don't think anybody can answer yet.
Right. Now, I guess the sell for Coach Prime could be, hey, Shador's going to be a junior. And, so 2 years max you sit, and, maybe he could get a little bit of depth.
Yeah.
Trent Dilfer, former NFL QB at UAB. Now, Bill Clark already proved that you could win there. And I guess
Sure.
Bill Clark had some health issues. I hope he's okay. But
his
did
back is really bad.
Okay. He did a hell of a job there, winning a bunch of games. And there was a lot of, kind of back and forth on whether they really wanted to have a program and so on. And evidently maybe they've committed. We may see this model going forward. The Deion Sanders, Trent Dilfer's, former coaches get back in to the game, and it's going to work some, and for some it's not. How do you see the UAB deal?
Well, the timing of this thing, if you're Trent Dilfer, is pretty good because you finally got an on-campus venue, right? I mean, that was what made what Bill Clark did even more remarkable. Is you're playing in a state where you've got Auburn and Alabama. You don't even have an on-campus stadium. Facilities were, minimal at best. You've made the investment to upgrade and at least be competitive within your conference. Be a team that is competing for a conference championship each and every year. I think they've proven they can do that. They certainly have the player profile as far as the recruiting landscape is concerned, not just in their own state, but in every state that they border. That gives them huge advantages. So what this comes down to for Trent Dilfer at the collegiate level is who he hires.
Yeah.
What's the staff look like? Do they get a bunch of grinders in recruiting? Does he have a mix of younger guys and older guys? What type of resources is UAB going to give him on the administrative side as far as student workers, offensive and defensive analysts, player personnel staffing, graphics, internet department, a whole entire transfer portal team that does nothing but study that? Like, we don't know all the details that you're going to have to truly be successful just yet. But it looks like the university's at least made an investment, and they're rolling the dice here. I mean, they're going with a guy that's been coaching at the high school level. Aside from that, he's played a long time in the NFL. Ironically, I think I've told you this. He was my host at Fresno State when I took my official visit there.
Was he really?
So I've known him. Yeah, I've known him a long, long, long time, going back to 1993. Really, really bright. Really bright. Understands, I think, the layout and the makeup. But again, there's a lot of moving parts, right? It's not high school football. It's not, and you're not going and making the move from high school to college as a GA or a position coach, right? Or as a coordinator. You look at Gus Malzahn, you look at Hugh Freeze, you look at Art Briles, you look at Todd Graham, Chad Morris. All these guys make the move, and they start off as position coaches or coordinators. No, not the head coach. Mm-hmm. And so that's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds too.
Tom Luginbill on the Yuengling Lager guest line. Let's go back to what you'll be doing this weekend in your big Capital One Bowl show on Sunday. Mississippi State and Illinois in Tampa. It's the ReliaQuest Bowl. So we have Mike Leach and Brett Bielema going at it. Size this one up a little bit for me between Bielema and Leach.
Okay, so you know how we always talk about when you're playing the air raid, don't play man defense? That's all Illinois does. Illinois lines up, man-to-man, cover one, cover zero, the entire game. They don't even try to hide it. So if they're going to take that mentality into the game versus Mississippi State, Illinois better be able to run the football with Chase Brown, who is a difference maker. He's a workhorse. they've got to limit Mississippi State's possessions because there is some pretty good skill for for Mississippi State, as we know, on offense that can create one-on-one matchups. You've got a very experienced quarterback. And so I think that it'll be interesting to see if Ryan Walters, the defensive coordinator at Illinois, is willing to change it up a little bit just so he doesn't put so much pressure on his back end. But they kind of are what they are. I mean, we're going to line up, we're going to rush the passer, and we're going to see if you can make tight throws into tight windows. The corner, Witherspoon, number 31 for Illinois, is a potential first-round draft choice. They've got 2 defensive tackles and a defensive end that are future NFL guys. Illinois' roster is a lot better than people think it is. This is going to be a fun game to watch because the contrasting styles on offense between the two teams could not be more opposite.
Ooh, all right, I like that. That's in Tampa. Mike Leach and Brett Bielema. Let's go Ole Miss and Texas Tech. Texas Tech has a new coach. Obviously, Ole Miss had a nice year but faltered down the stretch, and then there was a lot of drama with Lane and so on. Some Ole Miss fans aren't happy with the way that all unfolded the last couple of weeks. We've heard from them on the show. But that's in Houston, Tom Luginbill. So Ole Miss, Texas Tech, what do you see?
Well, of course, when we have this discussion, it's always hard to have it without knowing potential opt-outs, potential injuries, all of that stuff, right? But I will say this. Texas Tech has given every team they've played all year long fits. They've hung around in every game. They're kind of like a gnat, right? And that quarterback and the coordinator, Zach Kittley, is really good at spreading the field and moving the football. I mean, he's done it all the way back to Houston Baptist. Then he did it with Bailey Zappi at Western Kentucky. Now he's at Texas Tech. So that's going to be a challenge. I think it goes down to what I told you about in the Egg Bowl, right? Is how well can Ole Miss run the football? And are they going to have the services? Is Zach Evans back and healthy? Is he opting out? Do you know the answer to that one right now, Bob?
I don't know. I wouldn't think that Zach Evans would play, but he may.
Exactly. And so it's so difficult. I mean, you get that 1-2 punch. That's different than not having that. As good as Quinshon Judkins is, when you've got that type of momentum, I just think that the Ole Miss team will have better talent top to bottom. I think they'll be better equipped on both sides of the ball up front, although Texas Tech is kind of a pesky group defensively. I had them a couple times last year. Didn't have them this year, but they actually had some strength on that side of the ball. I think that one's a bit of a toss-up. In fact, I can't tell you what I did, but off the top of my head, if we're going 1 through 42, and confidence at 42 is I'm guaranteeing a win, and 1 is I do not believe in myself for picking this pick, I'd probably give that one a 21, right down the middle.
Okay. Good. No, I like this. Okay, maybe we'll get a couple of good games here. I want to switch gears to Alabama. After thinking about it, Tom, they go 10-2, and Bryce Young had to his heroics and his play allowed them to beat Texas and Ole Miss. Okay, so they could have dropped another game if he wasn't such a freak and so talented. They seem to be trending the wrong way for their standards, and so I mean, yeah, let's say Ty Simpson's just a good player next year, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great. Young player. He's kind of getting his feet wet. He's going to be good at times, bad at times, but looks like he's got all the potential. But he ain't going to be Bryce Young, who is an absolute freak. Where does that leave us with Alabama?
All right, I'm going to say something here. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. But there are a lot of rumblings out there that Drake May at North Carolina may enter the portal. Mm. If he does, he was initially committed to Alabama. Can you imagine if that move happened?
Wow. Okay.
So I think that to answer that question is to be determined. Whether, because Ty Simpson's a good player, but again, he's young. He's young.
Sure.
So he hasn't played much, and not everybody's Tua or Bryce Young or some of those guys. So I think there's so much to unpack with how teams are going to be impacted, not just in the bowl games, but next year off of what we've seen so far from opt-out in transfer portal. Like, for example, we're not going to know. We're doing these picks for our Capital One Bowl Mania show, and I'm having to make them. I had to complete them Monday. And I don't know what else is going to transpire here, right? We've got over 1,000 players going to portal in 48 hours. And so you sit there trying to make projections on these teams in bowl season and then kind of projections on them going forward. But it started getting me thinking of, top available guys. If you're sitting there looking at the transfer portal, and I'll tell you, man, I'm sitting there looking at Spencer Sanders, looking at that Hugh Freeze offense.
Oh, wow.
It's an awfully nice marriage there.
Wow. Oklahoma State's quarterback who –
And think about it. He's only got 1 year of eligibility remaining, but what if that 1 year is just enough to kind of get you off the mat, get you trending in the right direction? All of a sudden you perform better because you fixed the quarterback spot. Now you're Hugh Freeze. You win more games in year one than people thought you were going to. Now you have momentum. I mean, think about the tentacles that come off of that.
Are we going to do a hit next week, or are you out?
No, we'll do a hit next week.
Okay, then we can
just
jump
back
into
to Monday. I just couldn't do it that. Yeah.
We'll get into the college football playoff, and if you believe that any of the three, three can challenge Georgia next week. Okay. Hey, how much of a disservice was it that Hendon Hooker was not invited to New York for the Heisman Trophy deal this weekend?
Somewhat, but I'm actually a little bit more disappointed that Bijan Robinson wasn't invited. I know he's on an 8-14, pound for pound, dude. He might be one of the best, if not the best, football player playing. I mean, he is that good. And I think, to be honest with you, I think the Hendon Hooker deal, a lot of that, I'm not saying it's fair, but there is validity to it. There's a lot of people feel like that system is creating the stats. And maybe that hurt him a little bit. The thing that I think is odd, and I love Stetson Bennett, but to me, Stetson Bennett is in the same boat as Gino Torretta was in 1992.
Yes.
He's not even the best player on his own team.
No.
And don't get me wrong, he's a great player. But if you're not the best player on your own team, how are you a Heisman finalist?
Well, no. Who did you – can you say who you voted for, or how does that work?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope you have a good week in Bristol. Tell Dan Mullen we said hello. And
will do.
I used to have him on all the time, and now he's forgotten about me. And, I even went to his charity event and all that kind of stuff with Megan, who's a riot. So have fun. We'll talk next week, and we'll break down Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan. Hey, and can you imagine if Harbaugh goes to the NFL, Luke's?
Oh, God.
Holy smokes. All right, be good, dude.
Like every year. It's every year.
I know.
All right,
same thing with Lane Train. Thanks, Luke's. Tom Luginbill on the Yuengling Lager guest line. Pair a Yuengling with any burger on Bulldog Burger's menu, and you'll love Blake and I even more. In fact, show us the love that you have for us on Twitter @BowBounds and give us hearts and all sorts of things. Or on the Ag Up Equipment John Deere Tractor text line, 601-885-3776. David Johnson, Inside the Rebels, coming up next.